Hello, welcome to the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. This is Paul Hadeye. Today, I'm having a different kind of conversation, very different from the one you are used to. If you've been paying attention to real estate headlines in Canada, you will agree with me that something is not adding up. It's been an interesting time for people, not just people, apart from realtors, mortgage advisors, even consumers. And in a country where about 35 to 50% of people's income are being spent on housing, I think it's imperative we have this conversation. And I'm excited today. I'm joined by Dami Aromimura. She's a seasoned mortgage advisor. She is the founder of May Apple Financials. She's my friend. She's been helping a lot of clients to navigate this roller coaster of a market in these turbulent times. So we are going to be having a very interesting conversation from hidden mortgage renewal traps to pre-construction nightmares. We are going to be telling you everything, let's just say ugly truth about real estate that no one tells you until it's too late. So welcome. Join me welcoming Dami Aromiwura to the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. Welcome, Dami. I wish I had a bell too. Drum rolls for that.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much. I'm excited to have this conversation. Like you said, mortgage is top of mind for everyone. If you have a mortgage, it's probably the biggest line item on your budget. So anything affecting the real estate world or the mortgage world definitely affects us deeply. And then you see it in the news, also you see it in the comments.
Let's talk about people who already own their property. Like they've been keeping up, but suddenly something goes wrong. They can't pay their mortgage anymore. Maybe somebody loses his job or somebody loses one source of income. What are their options in that case so they don't lose their property? What should they do?
I always say the first thing is to look at your budget. Like if you've never been a budgeting person, you have to download your last 2 to 3 months expenses. Whatever can be cut needs to be cut immediately, right? And I think that at that point you need to start thinking about because right now in the economy it's not even easy to get a job. We can't even say you're going to be out of job for 30 days. The second step is once you cut to the bare minimum of your expenses, and the big one is your mortgage, what can you do on the side? Like, do you need to do freelancing? Do you need to drive Uber? What can you do at least to minimize that shortfall? Now, it might not cover you to where you were, but at least what can you do to minimize? Second thing, I would say explore renting out rooms in the house if you can on a short-term basis. If you have a basement, you should consider doing that. I see people do this, but I see that they wait too long. They don't look at all this option up until 3 months and they're still out of the job. But I would say literally the moment you know, you should just start putting those things into place right now. In terms of lending options, you can contact your banking institution, explain the situation to them. Sometimes they give you like a 3-month break. Sometimes they will give you a reduction. It varies. The type of options you have varies from institution to institution. And it's always something I always tell people also in the beginning, like at the front end, all institutions look the same, a little bit at least. But in times like this, you kind of see some institutions become maybe more flexible than the others. There are some institutions like you miss in 1 month, they are sending you a lawyer demand letter, like legal costs that are accumulated. Some might be more flexible of waiting 3 months. So at that point, you need to then contact your institution and see if they have any flexibilities, how long, right? Are they going to wait and how? Anyway, see what options are available to you. I also know sometimes people think of, oh, I'm just going to sell. I've lost my job. That might not be the best situation for you, but it could be worth a conversation of seeing what the market value is, see how much you owe. Selling is not cheap too. Like there's tons of costs involved. So if you are going to sell and it's going to be almost worth, the selling cost is like almost like a year worth of payment. Would you rather just wait until you get a job than sell? So you need to look at that as well. And then if you explored all of those options and you still need time, you can contact your mortgage broker, Sometimes we can do a home equity line of credit just to give you a bit more time, or at least additional funds for you to use so that you are not in default, or we can get a second mortgage. So there are other borrowing options that may be available to you to buy you some time.
Very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. So you can actually have conversation with your lender.
Yeah.
So do you need a mortgage advisor to initiate that conversation, or you can just walk in?
You can go directly to the
Okay.
lender, wherever your lender is. You can also have your mortgage broker or your advisor have that conversation. So usually you sign a consent form and they do the negotiation on your behalf, or you can go directly. Everybody's different, right? Depending on what you feel comfortable with.
Right. And if you don't have a mortgage advisor and you know you need one, Dami is here for you.
Yeah.
So you can always reach out to Dami. Dami is on Instagram. She's just look for Dami, Mortgages by Dami, Dawmy, and she will gladly help you. Okay. Now we've seen situations where people bought investment properties and they rented it out. Now, in a case where the economy is bleeding, it's not only affecting homeowners, it's also affecting people who pay rent, because accommodation is like a basic need. And whether you are renting or you own, you will be spending a significant amount of your income to keep that property, to keep your home. Now, in a case where I am a landlord and my tenant suddenly defaults, what are my options when my tenant is no longer paying rent?
Okay. I don't want to sound mean in this situation, but at the end of the day, if your tenant cannot pay, that means you might not be able to make your mortgage payment, and that means you can potentially lose the property. So from a landlord perspective, I would say that the first thing to do, if let's say that your tenant hasn't paid, by the second day, you should be reaching out to say, I haven't received your mortgage payment, what's going on? Like a friendly text or call, however you communicate with your tenants, and then see what they say. Sometimes they'll say, give me a few more days and we are fine, right? If you have that conversation by the 5th day they've not paid, you reach out again to see what's going on. 7th day, I'll say by the 15th of the month, you should be giving them an eviction notice.
Okay.
And it sounds mean, and I'm scared to say this, but the reason is the landlord tenant board, as is in Ontario, the process can take so long. So if you are being human, and the humanistic thing to do is actually give them more time, and you don't start anything until you're 3 months behind and you're in a, then you start the process, it might take you another 1 year.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like if you're in that situation, the best thing you could do is to start gathering information, and you need to act as soon as possible. Obviously, if that's the situation, they need to go to the landlord tenant board. If non-payment of rent is a valid reason for eviction, at that point, if you do get the order, you look for another tenant that's paying. So that's option one, and that minimizes the length of time where you're actually out of rent for some time. It also lets your tenant know that like they can't go on paying. Because if you're a bit more lenient, yes, you're trying to be nice and you understand their situation, but are you also okay to be able to continue paying that portion of the rent for some time until that person gets a job? And what if they are now 5 months behind, right? Maybe then they can start resuming payment, but what happens to the last 5 months of rent? From a mortgage perspective, it's kind of the same situation I described. You have to look for extra income to make that payment until they can. You have to call your lender to see if they have any accommodations, and you have to explore loan options to see if you can at least borrow some money to delay the time. But I would say from the way the tenant board is set up right now, you need to act swiftly if you're in that situation.
Okay. Have you seen anyone? Have you seen any situation of landlord tenant that tenant is unable to pay? Like a story that you know of someone that you know yourself?
Yes, definitely. So I had a client, investment property, everything was going great, but there was a divorce in the home, and unfortunately, the person that was left could not pay. So it's a very sad situation. At the end
Hmm.
of the day, you are not the government and you are not like a social provider. You also have expenses. So in that case, that person could not pay their mortgage, right?
Hmm.
She has her own mortgage to pay, and then she was using all her extra money, was taking up extra jobs.
Oh
But
no.
because she has such a good history with them and they were good paying tenants, she didn't start the process of until like 4 months later.
Hmm.
And then she
Which
was
cost
talking.
her a lot.
Eventually, she actually just sold the property. She's like, I'm just done being a landlord. But at least she could have cut the time if she had started
Started
that
earlier.
process earlier. So from a landlord perspective, that would be my suggestion. From a tenant perspective, of
Hmm.
course, try not to be in a situation. I know life happens, but you also have to look at the other side.
Hmm. Is there any provision or any support for tenants who are unable to pay their rent? Like, okay, as a tenant, I lose my job and I realize that I can't pay my rent anymore. Are there any provisions from the government? Like, maybe I reach out to the government and say, oh, this is my situation. I understand there is employment insurance, but really, the I don't know.
It's likely not going to cover the rate. But the first thing is the EI, right? So the tenants, if person loses their job, they can access EI. I know all the long term. There's like Ontario Workers Benefit, all the long term ones that support you through the rate. I'm sure the wait list is quite long. I don't think it's something that you can access right away. Like if I was a tenant, what would I do? I'm
Hmm.
looking at my EI, also looking at picking up extra jobs until you find something more permanent. Or maybe you can talk to your landlord to see if they can allow you to bring in a roommate in the meantime, right? So it's like
Hmm.
figuring out that what can you do to make sure your rent is paid.
Thank you. This has been very insightful. I'm sure people are learning from all this because it's been a really tough time. I've seen a lot of different cases from landlord not getting rent to pre-construction not being closed
Yeah.
to even this divorce that you mentioned. And the root cause analysis is, you know, it's just always good that everything is going well.
Yeah.
The moment things don't go well, you start seeing blame games like, okay, we were okay until my wife said we should take equity from this house to buy a new property. We decided to sign up for a pre-construction. Unfortunately, the husband lost the job, lost his jobs because he was doing two jobs, lost both of them, became sick, things just went bad, and they had to separate their ways. So when it comes to real estate in Canada, I think it's a very, I don't know the right word to use, but it's beyond the way we see it. There is a need for unity and the husband and wife should just be ready to work together
Yeah.
and be very calculative because a lot can go wrong if things don't go well. So thank you for sharing all that. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for listening. Till I come your way again, stay thriving.
Thank you so much for having me.